From the Sonoran Desert in the Great American Southwest, I am Mr. Wildcat, welcoming you back to another one of Mr. Wildcat's editorials. And today we will be piggybacking off of the Pac-12 editorial we did a couple weeks ago, and in terms of like where the Pac-12 is going to be headed. And in fact, before we go into today's conversation, kind of need to discuss some of the updates because our conversation today does reflect some of the updates that are coming up. So first of all, um, Colorado has bolted out the Pac 12. They will be leaving for the Big 12 effective July 1st, 2024, the same date that USC and UCLA will be leaving for the Big 10. All right. TV contract was supposed to be reviewed on July 21st during media days. August 1st, the day we are recording this video, we still don't have a fucking contract in place. Colorado is smart. They packed up and left. And right now, you're not going to believe who's the next school with one foot out the door. The Arizona Wildcats. Okay? Big 12 has come after Arizona, especially for their men's basketball. They want that very valuable men's basketball conference. Like, it's going to be, they vision it as one of the great, probably the greatest college basketball conference in all of Division One men's basketball. And I can tell you right now, there's got to be at least 30 conferences in Division One. And Big 12 figures we can get Arizona on board. We can be number one. Oh yes. Okay. So August 1st, there's supposed to be an emergency meeting with the Arizona Board of Regents, and there's going to be some kind of conference coming out. I don't know what the hell's going on. But at the time of this video, it is not yet official. However, the writing is currently on the wall that Arizona is at least one foot out the door, if not already out, pending a official announcement. Now, of course, there's one little obstacle. Arizona Board of Regents, they might step in and say, not so fast. What about your rivalry against your ugly sister ASU? Okay. So there are actual idiots at ABOR that are going to be very stubborn in making sure that Arizona and Arizona State remain the same conference. I'm pretty sure ABOR is going to want the Wildcats and Sun Devils to continue playing even after this is all over. And this conversation is probably going to be how will the Wildcats and Sun Devils continue to play if, in the worst case scenario, these two wind up going their separate ways? Okay? They're afraid that this is going to turn into one of those cases where Texas versus Texas A&M, where they wind up playing every single year between 1899 and 2011, and then all of a sudden Texas A&M separates from the Texas Longhorns to the SEC, and they don't play, and they're not going to be playing each other until until 2024, when the Texas Longhorns join the SEC. Or take the Big Yard Brawl, for example, between Pitt and West Virginia. Every year from 1895 to 2011, they wind up alternating back and forth. However, okay, in the case of the Backyard Brawl, it was mainly because their respective conference literally fell apart. It was they were part of the Big East, and then you have the powerhouse, you have the football schools, and then you have those that are strictly basketball. Okay, Big East was a bigger conference when it came to men's basketball because half the schools in the Big East did not play football. So the basketball schools, they wound up splitting from the football schools. They got the basketball schools got to keep the Big East name, but the football teams were left to fend for themselves. West Virginia wound up bolting to the Big 12 in an effort to replace Missouri and Nebraska and Texas A&M, of course, while Pitt, and then you had Syracuse who wound up leaving from over to the ACC, and everybody else that was left behind, they wound up forming their own conference called the ACC or the AAC, the American Athletic Conference to be exact. Okay, but West Virginia and Pitt, they have found a way to resurrect their rivalry. But it did require them to play the rivalry in the beginning of the season versus the end of the season. Okay, so today's conversation in this editorial is basically with all this in mind. In the worst case scenario that Arizona and Arizona State do want to go in their separate ways, in terms of Arizona going to the Big 12, Arizona State gets left behind to either play for the Pac-8 or the Pac-Embarrassment, for which it's become now, or if they wind up getting dissolved into another conference, such as the Mountain West or the Western Athletic Conference. Okay. Okay. And what's going to happen? All right. Because I know like ABOR is going to want to sit down with Dr. Robbins, president of U of A, and Dr. Crow, president of ASU, saying, Arizona, you are free to go to the Big 12 under the condition that the two of you find a way to keep your rivalries going on. You two are going to have to play each other every single year. Okay, and this conversation for this editorial is devoted to both football and men's basketball. Okay, why not women's basketball? To hell with that. All right, that's a conversation for another video. But basically, um, in terms of football, all right, Wildcats and Sun Devil. Okay, many of their non-conference games are scheduled years out. Okay, they're scheduled like 10 to 15 years in advance. And in terms of the Wildcats, their non-conference schedule is completely booked up for the next 10 years, except for one slot, which is in 2032. All right, they're completely booked up all the way through the 2033 season. Okay. However, we do have if Arizona does make a move to the Big 12, there will be slots that will open up because some of our non-conference games do feature Big 12 matchups, and these schools will wind up becoming conference. Okay, will transform into our conference lineup. Okay, Arizona State, on the other hand, they have a little bit more leading space, but we're going to get there in just a moment. So basically, if Arizona and Arizona State do go their separate ways, I'm pretty sure ABOR is going to find a way to keep the Wildcats and Sun Devils on the schedule um, for their non-conference. Whether they play each other during the Thanksgiving weekend like they have been, while having to make exceptions to the respective conferences, saying, don't schedule us any conference games during Thanksgiving because we've already reserved that for our in-state rivals between Tempe and Tucson. Or the Wildcats and Sun Devils will find a way to schedule this matchup for the beginning of the season. All right. Now, of course, if this rivalry does go to the beginning of the season, guess what? No more day games. It's all going to be at night. And the only exception would be if the Wildcats and Sun Devils wind up having to play each other at State Farm Stadium, which is home to the Arizona Cardinals of the NFL. Also home to the Fiesta Bowl, might I add, which is where the Big 12 conference champion gets to go if they miss the playoffs. Oh, wait a minute. Not so fast. Playoff is. I forgot the playoffs expanding, and the Fiesta Bowl is off limits. But I'm pretty sure conference champion of the Big 12 will receive an automatic berth into the expanded college football playoff. Okay, but basically, let's take a look. Okay, so my vision is ABOR is going to sit down with Robbins and Crow and say, Arizona, you are free to go on a condition you guys keep your football rivalry going, and you guys are going to have to go into your non-conference schedules, and you're going to have to take one opponent off your schedules to accommodate this rivalry between each other. And guess what? And I'd like to make another note, guys. If and to make things even more interesting, NAU, this does not get you guys off the hook for playing NAU. If NAU is on your schedule, you have to keep them on there. They're on contract to play one or the other every fucking year. For all, from here to eternity. Yeah. Peace. Okay. So, anyway, Pact. So NAU is on. I'm pretty sure that they wind up that they're stuck in a contract with ABOR, saying they have to have either the U of A or ASU on their non-conference schedule every single year. All right. So ABOR is going to run saying like, if NAU is on your schedule, that does not get you off the hook. You still have to play them. You're going to have to cut ties with some other school. All right. So, in the case that this does wind up going to happen, what kind of schools or non-conference matchups would both the Wildcats and Sun Devils have to cut ties with over the next 10 years? Okay? Like I said, many of these non-conference games are scheduled years in advance. And I know for sure there's probably going to be some games that both schools are going to want to give up, and there's others that are going to say, oh, hell no, we want to keep these bastards on the schedule. Okay? So, first, we're going to start off with the Wildcats because they're probably the more interesting bunch of them all. Okay? So, starting in 2024, okay, they have New Mexico, NAU, and Kansas State. Okay? Now, NAU has to stay on the schedule. Okay? 24 and 25 will be easy for the Wildcats if they move to the Big 12 because they have a home and home against Kansas State on the schedule. Those games will easily. Okay, Arizona will basically want to create a conference matchup against the Kansas State Wildcats, thus eliminating a non-conference game for each of those 2 seasons. Solution solved. All right. What you would probably do in this case scenario: keep Kansas State on those specific dates, start conference play a week early, and that way you accommodate the Sun Devils on your schedule for the end of the season. Problem solved, at least for the Wildcats for those 2 years. So what happens with the Wildcats after that? Well, 26 and 27, another problem solved. We have another Big 12 member on our schedule. Well, of course, they weren't Big 12 when we scheduled them, but it just happened that way. We have BYU on our schedule. Yeah. Get used to them, cats. You want to go to the Big 12? Better get used to it. Okay. So with this one, BYU is on. There's a home and home in 26 and 27. They're both the second um, game of the three non-conference. Out of the three non-conference games on our schedule for those 2 years, BYU is right in the middle. So the options are: do we eliminate BYU off the schedule and play them later on in the year, or do we keep BYU on our non-conference schedule? Oh, wait, keep BYU on the schedule as a conference matchup, and then schedule ASU for the end of the year. Okay, that's now that's where the easy solutions come to an end for the Wildcats, because in 2028 onwards, there's no Big 12 matchups on our schedule, so it's going to be a lot harder for Arizona to accommodate. But to give you an idea, all right, we have home and homes versus, like, we have schools like Colorado State, Nebraska, Virginia Tech, Air Force Academy, Wyoming, Alabama. All right, we have home and homes against these schools over the next few following few years. So in 2028, you have Colorado State, Prairie View A&M, and Nebraska. All right, and I'm pretty sure Arizona's not going to want to give up Nebraska. All right, no chance in hell. So what do they do? They're probably going to want to. They're probably going to wind up taking Colorado State or Prairie View A&M off their schedule. Probably. Okay, they'll probably want to give up Colorado State because Prairie View A&M will be an easy. That's considered an easy victory for the Wildcats. So they'll probably want to give up Colorado State to accommodate for ASU, and then either schedule ASU for the season opener or start conference play during the opening weekend or something around there. Okay. 2029, we're at Hawaii. We host Virginia Tech. We host Air Force Academy. Okay. 2029. Okay, so a couple of options here. We give up our game at Hawaii. We okay. We no, of course, 2029. We're gonna wind up with a set. Let's rephrase that. Okay, 2029. We're most likely gonna wind up with a second bye week since we have to play Hawaii in our season opener. We play a week earlier than everybody else, which gives us a bye week during the Labor Day weekend. So host. So play ASU over the Labor Day weekend, or okay, or give up or use that Labor Day weekend as our only bye week for the year and schedule ASU at the end. Okay. I know for sure U of A is not going to want to give up the Air Force game because that is a home game. And every year, recently, the Wildcats have done a military appreciation day. Okay. We are home to both the Davis Monthan Air Base here in Tucson. We're also home to the Fort Huachuca Air Base down in. We're also home to Fort Huachuca down by Sierra Vista. Okay, and every time we do military appreciation, we have a shitload of military officials that show up, and I know for sure they're going to want. All right, not because it's air. Okay, they're definitely going to want to do something special. Okay, it's going to attract all the military officials, and they're going to want to use that game for the military appreciation. Okay, yeah. So what is that going to? So what else does that leave us? We That leaves us Virginia Tech, which I'm not sure if they're going to want. We're going to, which is supposed to come to Tucson. I'm not sure if we're going to want to give that up, or if we want to give up our game against Hawaii, or if you just want to add a 13th game for the season and slide Arizona State in somewhere. All right. 2030, we're at Virginia Tech. We host NAU and we host Wyoming. NAU's off limits. Okay, so let's forget about that. Options are to give up wider Wyoming or at Virginia Tech, but since this is an even year, so this would technically be a home. So a U of A ASU rivalry would be like a home game for the Wildcats. So probably give up Wyoming, accommodate ASU. Okay, start conference play a week early and accommodate ASU for the end of the season. Okay. 2031. We host NAU. We're at Air Force. We host Nebraska. Okay? This is a tough one. NAU is off limits. We host Nebraska. I don't think Arizona's going to want to give that up. That leaves the Air Force Academy. Well, this is one's at Air Force. This one is a road game up at the Air Force Academy, and I'm pretty sure they're part of the Mountain West Conference. So like I'm pretty sure that okay. See, I'm pretty sure like Arizona probably wouldn't mind giving that up, and then substituting that for a conference game early on. Okay. So you're probably wondering while we're piggybacking on this. Why am I suggesting Arizona to start conference play a little earlier than everybody else? Well, let's take a look at some of at one of these non-conference games, traditional in the Pac-12. USC and Stanford. Okay, in recent ever since conference realignment. Okay, or ever since conference expansion, USC and Stanford traditionally start their they play their matchup while everybody else is in non-conference mode. Okay, usually during the second or third week of the season. Why? Each of those schools has annual rivalries with Notre Dame. One of them goes to South Bend in mid-October. The other one hosts Notre Dame in California at the very end of the season. Okay, so with those in mind, okay, in order for USC and Stanford to accommodate each other and keep their rivalries with Notre Dame while accommodating the rest of the pack, USC and Stanford they wind up having to play their conference matchup before everybody else does. Okay, which gives both USC and Stanford an unfair advantage in terms of conference play, but at the same time, they get to finish a week earlier than everybody else, which gives everybody else an opportunity to see what do we have to do in order to finish over the condoms and the trees. It's probably the best way of saying it. All right. So heading back, okay, in 2031, I believe. Probably the best solution here would be to give up Air Force, substitute for a conference game, and then play ASU at the end of the season. Okay. 2032, we don't have to make any. We don't have to do anything whatsoever because there is one not there's one non-conference game open, and it's pretty much between now and 2034. It is the only open slot on their non-conference schedule in 2032. So they see 32. Oh dear, we have a play date against the White Trash in Alabama, and we come back the following week to host NAU. That leaves us an open slot in our non-conference schedule. So what does that mean for the Wildcats? Okay, you don't have to cancel anybody. Schedule a non-conference game. Schedule a Big 12 conference matchup a week early, and play ASU at the end of the season. Okay. 2033, a little more skeptical here. Um, for this is the last time we have to give up any non-conference games because the last year where we were fully booked up. We have a home. We have the White Trash Tide or Alabama. They come to Tucson in 20 to start off the 2033 season. We host NAU the same year as well, and we have a play date at Wyoming. I know Arizona's not going to want to give up Alabama in Tucson. No chance in hell. So Wyoming's going to be the one that has to go. Okay. 2034. Oh my God. Okay. So let me talk about the only other non-conference schedule game that Arizona has on their schedule for 2034 onward is Texas Tech. Let me explain about Texas Tech for a moment. Okay. Texas Tech and Arizona originally had a home and home schedule with each other for 2019 and 2020. Okay? The deal was for the Wildcats to host Texas Tech in 2019 and for the Wildcats to visit Texas Tech in 2020. 2020 came around, that phony pandemic that everybody got suckered into. Okay, they wind up. Okay, it pretty much destroyed college football that year. Pac-12 canceled all non-conference games, including Texas Tech. So this game in 2034 that's on our schedule, that's a reschedule. Right? That is a rescheduled date with Texas Tech to make up for 2020. Now, of course, we joined the Big 12. You're not going to have to worry about making up that game because we're going to be in the same conference. We're going to wind up playing them anyway. So we take them off. You basically start from scratch. Okay, from 24-34 onward, basically you play two non-conference games of your choice. Okay, one of them being NEU from time to time, and then the other one you can do as anybody you want. And that third one you can play against ASU, whether you play them at the beginning of the season or you play them at the end of the season. Okay, preferably like to start at the end of the season and then wind up having to start conference play a little earlier and get that out of the way so we can get to the fun game at the end of the year. Believe me, until okay, I honestly did not know who was in the Pac-10 or who was in the Pac, who else was in the Pac entirely until after I graduated from college. All right, and I wound up going to every game during the every home game during the last year of college. I didn't really get into college football until I got to college, and by the time I got to know who everybody was, it wasn't until after I was out of there. Okay, but I do now, and unfortunately, everything's about to fall apart. Okay, now in terms of ASU, all right, they have a little more leniency in their way. So like their non-conference schedule is all booked up through 2029 with one open slot in 2027. So they can easily fill that slot with Arizona, and that will be it for them. So 2024. So let's see. They have a home and home. They have home and homes against Mississippi. Once Arizona's done with their home and home with Mississippi State at the end of this year, um, Arizona State will have their turn with a home and home against Mississippi State in 2024 and 2025. And I'm pretty sure the Sun Devils are not going to want to give that up. Okay. So what does that leave for the Sun Devils in 2020? So they have home and home against Texas State in 2024 and 2025. They're probably not going to want to. Well, they're probably going to keep them on the schedule for an easy victory, but at the same time, they might not have a choice. Like if they want to keep Mississippi State on their schedule, they're not going to have a choice, especially when they have NAU on their schedule for 2025. All right, 2026 and 2027 they have home and homes against Texas A&M. I know for sure they're not going to want to give that up. Bowling Green and Hawaii are their other non-conference matchups in 2026. They'll probably have to give up. Most likely have to give up the game again. They'll have to pick between one of the two. All right. 2027, they have Texas A&M and UNLV on their schedule. There's an open slot. That's an easy fix. Now 2028 and 2029. Now a little thing interesting here. So if Arizona State stays behind, they wind up joining. Okay, if the Pac survives and San Diego State joins the Pac, or if Arizona State or if the Pac dies and winds up in the same conference as San Diego State, they have a home and home against San Diego State in 2028 and 2029. San Diego State falls off the schedule. Okay, ASU can either um, take San Diego State off the schedule, or they can basically play a conference game a little earlier than usual, and have and open up the slots at the end of the year for Arizona. 2030, 20 and onward, like they only have one conference game on their one non-conference game on their schedules for 2030 through 2034. So that's easy fix for them. So they got LSU, they got a home and home against Florida, they got Texas, okay, home and home against Texas. And I know for sure the Sun Devils are not going to want to give those up. But okay, Sun Devils have a little bit easier because they don't have as many non-conference games on their schedules as Arizona. But at the same time, Arizona, they have some Big 12 games, Big 12 opponents on their non-conference schedule. So if the Wildcats were to move to the Big 12 and leave ASU behind, like it doesn't matter whether ASU comes with them or not. It's gonna open up extra mat non-conference. It's gonna open up extra space for the Wildcats. All right, and the main difference is if the two split their ways, those empty slots get filled with ASU, and if they tag along and join the same conference, then that gives them an extra non-conference game to schedule. All right, so this week's going to be a pretty interesting one, and I please stay tuned for further information. I know for sure later, a couple of days, in a week, at least a day or two from now, there's going to be additional information that's going to be coming out. So be on the lookout for that. So a lot of, probably by the end of this week, many of our questions will likely get answered. Where where's Arizona going to wind up? Are they going to go separate ways? Or are they going to split ways with Arizona State? If so, are they going to play? Or how are they going to be able to find a way to keep playing each other? Okay. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about basketball. Simple. Schedule one. Do the same thing that Arizona does with NAU. Schedule one non-conference game early on in the non-conference schedule. Except you alternate the home courts from year to year. So they want whichever year that whichever school is hosting the football game, the other one hosts the basketball game. So like in the odd years, the football game is held at ASU, so host the basketball game at the U of A. And then in the even years, when the football game is in Tucson, you play the basketball game up in Tempe. That's the easy fix there. All right. Stay tuned this week. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot more answers coming out, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen as of right now, but we are in for a very fun ride. Okay. What's the Pac-12 TV contract gonna look like? Is Arizona gonna bolt up the door? Is Arizona gonna tag ASU with them? Are both schools gonna go their separate ways? Or they're gonna find a way to keep playing each other if they do go their separate ways? Like, stay tuned. This is all a work in progress. Okay. So until the next time we meet, I'm Mr. Wildcat. Remind you to help control the Mormon population. Have your kids spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.